Alright, so this is standard instrument departure training for American virtual pilots. We're going to go through the three different standard instrument departures that you will see, a radar departure, an RNAV departure, and a hybrid departure. And we'll talk about how to read the chart and what you can kind of expect from ATC for each one. So the first one that we're looking at here is the Westchester, it's the Westchester 7 departure in New York. The first thing we look at in the top left corner, as it says here, is New York departure, is the frequency that ATC would be on. This could change if you're on VATSIM or a different ATC network. You're going to want to look at whichever frequency the departure is using. Next is your airport elevation. Then we have our transition altitude, 18,000 feet standard across the United States. It's where we transition from whatever the ground pressure is to standard pressure in our aircraft. And then this is going to say this is a radar required departure, so you have to have a radar equipped aircraft. And then it's going to have a few different pieces of information about different departures off of this one chart, what kind of aircraft can be accessed by it. So here it says Elliott may be accessed by all aircraft types, requesting a final altitude of 14,000 to 16,000. Newell may be accessed by turbojet aircraft only, requesting a final altitude at or above 18,000. And then ZIMS may be accessed by all aircraft types, requesting a final altitude at or above flight level 18,000. Here we're going to see a initial departure plate. This particular one is for the Westchester County Kilo Hotel Papa November Airport. And so you can see here off the different runways what headings you can expect to fly and then what you need to do on them. So here, if we HPN, there's the correct airport. Whoops. That makes more sense. All right, so we have 3, 4, 16, 2, 9, and 11. So if we go back to our Westchester 7 chart, you can see here you have your different initial climbs and your top altitude. So this is the top altitude you're allowed to fly on the departure, unless up and until ATC tells you something different. So when departing runway 11, you're going to climb on a heading of 115 and maintain 3,000 altitude. So basically you're going to climb on 115 and stay on heading 115 up to 3,000 until ATC gives you a vector to your planned route. From runway 16, you're going to climb on a heading of 163 to 800 feet. Then you're going to have a climbing right turn on heading 320 and maintain 3,000. So we can see here our our climb of 163 to 800 feet, and you can't exceed 190 knots until you're established on heading 320. So you're going to make that climbing turn to 320, and then you'll stay on 320 until assigned. 29, just straight out, follow runway heading 295 till you get to 3,000 and wait for ATC to assign you. And then on runway 34, you're going to climb on heading 343, which is runway heading, till you get 1,000 feet, and then you'll make that left climbing turn to 3,000 feet on heading 295. Here's a different routing you can expect. So on vectors, to be assigned to a route or fix, expect clearance to be filed altitude 10 minutes after departure. So if you filed for, let's say, flight level 340, you can expect around 10 minutes after your departure to be given your clearance to climb to that altitude. And here we have all the different departures. So these are all the different fixes, different basically VORs that you are going to file to. And it's basically telling you, like if we look at the Gale departure, you can expect vectors to the Gale VOR on radial 320. And that's basically a radar departure chart. So the big thing here is a radar departure relies on ATC to vector you around and tell you what headings to fly until they send you on your whatever planned route that you filed. You'll have an initial climb out, but after that, it's up to ATC to tell you where to go. All right, so then the last one we have is a hybrid departure. So this is a kind of in between a radar departure where it's all ATC telling you where to go, and a pilot RNAV departure where you're expected to know where to fly. Upon initial takeoff from in this departure chart, ATC is going to vector you around, and then they're going to tell you at some point to go direct to a certain waypoint, and then that's where you'll begin your pilot navigation based on what you've filed. But again, we have the same kind of information here. Departure frequency, our transition altitude, radar is required. You have your lost comms. Looks like there's no takeoff minimums for this departure, so there's no obstacles upon takeoff. It says here, all runways, you're going to fly on assigned heading for radar vectors. So that's where this is the radar part of it, to your route. You'll climb and maintain 10,000 or an ATC lower altitude, and you'll expect your filed altitude 10 minutes after departure. So top altitude here of 10,000 feet, unless they give you lower. So here they may tell you, you're departing off of, let's go to Denver. So let's say we're departing 17 left. That's a typical departure runway out of Denver. So it's a heading of 173. So if we are departing 17 left, they're probably going to tell you, you're cleared for fly runway heading, clear for takeoff 17 left. So hey, I'm flying 17 left, the heading of 173, up to 10,000 feet until I get told to go somewhere else. So usually, let's say we're flying this Dove Creek transition here. It may tell me, okay, I'm on my 173, right turn, direct Baylor. So I'm going to go direct here to Baylor. This is going to be our transition waypoint. And now I'm starting my pilot navigation to Boba. And then depending on what transition I filed, I'm going to keep flying this until I get to either the rest of my assigned route, or if you're flying to an airport that's very close, like LA and Las Vegas, very close to each other. Typically, they're with LA and LX, there's no waypoints in between your standard departure and your standard arrival. So you're basically just flying two charts the entire time out of LA. All right. So that's the basics of departures. It's not too complicated. We're going to fly the Orca 5 real quick, just as a demonstration here. So I'm already set up here. I'm in the Phoenix. I'm on runway 25 right. So just a real quick demo of how I'm setting up my MCDU. I'm going to click on my departure, or my departure airport. Click departure. We're departing 25 right. We're going to be on the Orca 5. And we're just going to Las Vegas, so we're flying the Meisen transition. And I'm going to insert that. And so here you're going to see, okay, we're flying our departure noise 25 right, that's correct. Flying heading 251 until 64 until 640 feet in the air. Let's see if I can. So again, we saw that on our chart here. We're flying heading 251 until 640, so we know it's programmed correct to the computer. Then we're going on track 252, like it says, to Docker. And then it says manual heading of 236, right? So when we get to Docker, we're doing that manual heading of 236, and we're just staying there. Then it has a discontinuity in the flight plan. It's important that you don't clear this out prior to flight, because if you clear it out, what's going to end up happening is after Docker, it's going to get rid of this manual, and you're going to go straight to Clipper, and then ATC is going to yell at you because that's not how to fly this departure. But then when we look at the rest of our departure here, let's say, okay, they told us to go to Clipper. We have to be above 10,000 feet. And then, and you can see, let's see here. There you go. If you click on like kegs, you can see you have to be above 13, but below flight level 19 or 0. If we click on Clipper, you can see altitude constraint is above 10,000. So we just want to make sure that we have the correct altitude constraints set up in our computer. So when we're flying with autopilot, it's following those constraints and it's climbing accordingly. So we're not too low or too high on our departure. So we can see the rest of our flight plan. So we had kegs, Coop, then Orca, and then we go to Navy, and then Maizen. So Navy, and then Maizen, and now we have discontinuity because I don't have our anything after that put in. All right, so the aircraft is all set up. So here, what I'm going to expect from ATC is something like, American 2288, RNAV to Docker, cleared for takeoff 25 right. So I would read that back as cleared for takeoff, or I would read that back as RNAV Docker, cleared for takeoff 25 right, American 2288. So I'm going to engage autopilot right away here, just to kind of for purposes here to show what's going on here. So we are now direct to Docker because we cleared the 640 feet. And we can see here after Docker, it just has a straight line heading down on that heading of 236, which is what we're expecting it to do. I'll try to leave the chart up here. You see it? So now we're on that heading of 236, and we can expect to stay on this heading until ATC gives us a higher altitude, and we're going to expect that climbing left turn to cross Clipper at or above 10,000 feet. So what I like to do is, if ATC comes on now and says, okay, American 2288, left turn direct Clipper, I'll go here direct. If I put in Clipper, you can see it knows it needs to be a left turn. So that looks good. So I'll hit insert, and now what it's going to do is the plane's going to just start making this nice left turn until we come back around and head to Clipper. By the time we get to Clipper, we should be above our restraint altitude. With Airbuses, if you click this constraint button here, it'll show you on your navigation page your speed and altitude constraints right there, so you have them easy to look at. If I go to plan, I can also look here at my different altitude constraints, and I can cycle through them. That's it. That's how you fly this departure. It's a bit of, again, this is kind of like a hybrid as well, where it's a bit of ATC giving you a little bit of direction, but then they expect from this point on, after giving that direct Clipper assignment, they expect me to fly this departure and that transition to Meisen on my own without getting further instruction from them. And if there's no other questions, that concludes this training.